unknown, Henderson Field, Guadalcanal, 2200 hours. In the stifling darkness of the Solomon Islands, Private Robert Young Deere of the 164th Infantry Regiment inspects his M1 Garand rifle one last time. His unit had landed on the island just 11 days prior on October 13th, becoming the first U.S. Army formation to initiate offensive operations against the Japanese. Now, positioned alongside Marines still equipped with bolt-action Springfield rifles, the soldiers of the 164th firmly hold their semi-automatic weapons, each loaded with 8 rounds in a block clip. Through the oppressive humidity and the din of nocturnal insects, a sound emerges that chills the blood of every American soldier. Thousands of Japanese troops commence their charge, shouting banzai and totsugeki at the top of their lungs. Among the attacking forces, Lieutenant Kenji Yamamoto of the 29th Infantry Regiment leads his platoon forward. His Type 38 Arisaka rifle, with its notably long 31.4-inch barrel, proves cumbersome in the thick underbrush. The 5-round internal magazine has been loaded with 6.5 50mm Arisaka rounds, each requiring him to operate the bolt-action to chamber, up, back, forward, down. Behind him, some newer troops carry the Type 99 rifle, chambered for the more powerful Hafen 7.58mm cartridge, but still a bolt action, still limited to 5 rounds before needing to reload with stripper clips. What transpires in the next 12 hours of brutal combat will illustrate why American infantry held a significant advantage in firepower that the Japanese had not foreseen. The technological disparity between the semi-automatic M1 Garand and the bolt-action Arisaka rifles would prove as crucial as any tactical doctrine, highlighting how industrial innovation and mass production could influence the outcome of infantry combat in the world's first truly modern war. The battle about to unfold at Henderson Field would exemplify a fundamental truth of the Pacific War. Although Japanese soldiers exhibited remarkable bravery and resolve, they faced limitations due to rifle technology that was outdated. The M1 Garand's semi-automatic mechanism, 8-round capacity, and powerful 30-6 Springfield cartridge provided American forces with a rate of fire and stopping power that the Japanese infantry, equipped with bolt-action Arisaka rifles, could not compete with. This difference in small arms capability was amplified across numerous confrontations throughout the Pacific theater, from the humid jungles of New Guinea to the volcanic ash of Iwo Jima, significantly contributing to the ultimate American triumph. The M1 Garand was conceived by Canadian-American designer John Cantius Garand, who began his work at Springfield Armory in 1919. After 17 years of development, testing, and refinement, the U.S. Army officially adopted his design on January 9, 1936, making the United States the first country to issue a semi-automatic rifle as standard equipment for its infantry forces. The rifle utilized the powerful 30-06 Springfield cartridge, propelling a 150-grain M2 ball projectile at 2,050 FTOS from its 24-inch barrel, producing 2,656 FTLB of muzzle energy. The brilliance of Garand's design resided in its gas-operated rotating bolt system. A small amount of propellant gas was drawn from a port near the muzzle, driving an operating rod that automatically cycled the action. Each trigger pull discharged 1 round with the gas pressure, automatically ejecting the spent cartridge and chambering the next round without any manual effort from the shooter. A trained soldier could accurately fire between 40 and 50 aim shots per minute, in contrast to the 15 to 20 rounds per minute achievable with a bolt-action rifle. The 8-round on-block clip, inserted from above, into the fixed magazine could be reloaded in under 3 seconds by a skilled rifleman. The development process was not without its difficulties, as early prototypes employed a primer-actuated system that proved to be unreliable. The rifle was initially crafted for the 276 PD Sun cartridge. However, in 1932, General Douglas MacArthur intervened, advocating for the retention of the 30-36 Springfield round to make use of the existing ammunition reserves. This choice postponed production, yet ultimately turned out to be advantageous as the robust 306 cartridge delivered outstanding long-range performance and stopping power. The Arisaka rifles can trace their heritage back to Colonel Narakira Arisaka's original Type 30 design from 1897, which was created to replace the insufficient Maratha rifles that were in service at the time. By the time of World War II, Japanese forces predominantly utilized two variants, the Type 38, which was adopted in 1905, and the Type 99 introduced in 1939, the 99th year of the Japanese calendar. The Type 38 fired a 6.5 Fox 50mm semi-rimmed cartridge with a 139-grain bullet at a velocity of 2,500 feet per second, generating around 1,650 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. In contrast, the Type 99 employed the more potent 7.58mm cartridge, discharging a 182-grain bullet at 2,400 feet per second, producing 2,300 foot-pounds of energy. Both Arisaka variants were bolt-action rifles equipped with 5-round internal magazines that were loaded using 5-round stripper clips. The Type 38's remarkable barrel length of 31.4 inches made it one of the longest infantry rifles ever deployed, enhancing its long-range accuracy, but it proved to be exceedingly unwieldy in jungle warfare, where engagement distances seldom surpassed 100 yards. The Type 99, with its shorter barrel, measuring 25.9 inches, was more manageable but arrived too late to completely supplant the Type 38 in active service. The Arisaka action itself was notably robust. Post-war evaluations demonstrated that it was stronger than the American Springfield, British Lee Enfield, or German Mauser actions. The rifles were equipped with an innovative safety mechanism that could be operated quietly, and the bolt design included a gas escape system to safeguard the shooter in the event of a ruptured cartridge case. Nevertheless, these engineering advancements could not mitigate the inherent limitation of manual bolt operation during a time of escalating firepower. The industrial gap between America and Japan became distinctly evident in the figures for rifle production. From 1936 to 1945, American factories manufactured around 5.4 million M1 Garand rifles. Leading the production was Springfield Armory, which produced 3.5 million rifles, while Winchester Repeating Arms Company contributed 180 rifles. Additional production was provided by International Harvester and Harrington and Richardson during the Korean War. By January 1944, peak production at Springfield Armory reached 1,000 rifles per day, with Winchester achieving a daily output of 600 rifles at their peak. This substantial production ensured that nearly every American infantry soldier and Marine in the Pacific was equipped with the semi-automatic rifle. By mid-1943, the allocation system of the U.S. military prioritized combat units, with the Marine Corps receiving 22,000 M1 Garands monthly in early 1943. Despite their initial hesitance to adopt the rifle, by the conclusion of the fiscal year 1942, the Marine Corps had 62,886 M1 Garands, although not all had been delivered to frontline units. In contrast, Japanese production painted a significantly different picture. Between 1905 and 1945, Japan produced approximately 3 million Type 38 rifles across various arsenals, including Koshiawa, later known as Tokyo, Kakura, Nagoya, and Mokdan Arsenal in occupied Manchuria. The production of Type 99 rifles from 1939 to 1945 reached about 3.5 million units across 9 different arsenals, including 2 located outside of Japan itself, Mukden in Manchukuo and Jinsen in Korea. Despite these considerable figures, which total over 6 million rifles, Japan was unable to achieve the production rates required to fully modernize their infantry weapons. Many second-line troops, garrison forces, and naval infantry units continued to use Type 38 rifles by the end of the war, leading to logistical challenges due to the presence of 2 different types of ammunition. Throughout the war, American M1 Garand production maintained a remarkably consistent level of quality. The quality control measures at Springfield Armory rejected any rifle that did not group within 5 inches at 100 yards. The interchangeability of components among rifles produced by various manufacturers was rigorously maintained through comprehensive specifications and gauging standards. A damaged M1 Garand could be field repaired using parts obtained from other rifles, irrespective of the manufacturer. The implementation of enhanced heat treatment techniques in 1942 resulted in an increase in receiver strength compared to pre-war production. The finishes were developed for practicality rather than cost-effectiveness. The transition from blued steel to Parkerizing significantly improved corrosion resistance in tropical conditions. Due to shortages of walnut, birch, and other hardwoods replaced walnut stocks, yet functionality remained uncompromised. Simplifications made late in the war included the replacement of milled trigger guards with stamped ones, although these modifications underwent thorough testing to guarantee reliability. In contrast, the quality of Japanese manufacturing declined as the war progressed. Early Type 99 rifles showcased remarkable innovations, including chrome-lined barrels, which were the first military rifles to feature this, anti-aircraft sights with folding arms for targeting aerial threats, dust covers to shield the action, and integrated wire monopods for enhanced stability. The finish was a rich blue, and the stocks were crafted from high-quality Japanese hardwood with meticulous inletting. By 1944, these advancements had disappeared due to production pressures and material shortages. Last-ditch rifles displayed rough machining marks, simplified fixed rear sights to replace the intricate ladder sight, wooden butt plates instead of metal, and inferior wood with poor fitting. Some final production rifles even lacked basic finishing, exhibiting visible tool marks on all metal surfaces. The chrome lining was eliminated as chromium became scarce, monopods were removed, and even the imperial chrysanthemum marking was crudely stamped rather than precisely rolled. The semi-automatic action of the M1 Garand offered numerous tactical advantages beyond mere rate of fire. Following each shot, the soldier preserved his sight picture and cheek weld as the rifle cycled automatically. This facilitated quicker target reacquisition and enhanced accuracy for follow-up shots. The operating rod, propelled by gas pressure, tapped near the muzzle, cycled with enough force to operate reliably even when contaminated with mud, sand, volcanic ash, or carbon residue from prolonged firing. Although the end block clip system faced criticism for its unique ejection ping, which supposedly signaled to enemies that the rifle was empty, it actually enabled the quickest reload of any contemporary military rifle. A trained soldier could perform a reload in under 3 seconds compared to 5 to 7 seconds for a skilled user utilizing stripper clips on a bolt-action rifle. The ejection of the clip also offered immediate tactile and audible confirmation that the rifle was empty, thus preventing any confusion that might arise with rifles lacking an indication of an empty magazine. Weighing 9.5 lb, the M1, while considered heavy by modern standards, effectively managed the significant recoil of the .36 cartridge, allowing for rapid and precise follow-up shots. The rifle's length of 43.6 in was well balanced, with weight evenly distributed between the heavy barrel and solid wood stock. The two-stage military trigger, though not match-grade, delivered consistent performance that soldiers could master through training. In contrast, the Arisaka rifles, despite their sturdy construction and theoretical accuracy, were hindered by the inherent limitations of bolt action operation, which became critical in combat situations in the Pacific. After each shot, the soldier was required to manually cycle the bolt through 4 distinct movements: rotating the bolt handle upward, pulling it fully rearward to extract and eject the spent cartridge, pushing it forward to strip a new round from the magazine and chamber it, and finally rotating the handle down to lock it. This procedure disrupted the shooter's firing position, misaligned the sights, and took 2 to 3 seconds even for a well-trained soldier. The Type 38's considerable length of 50.3 inches rendered it particularly ill-suited for jungle combat. Japanese soldiers encountered difficulties with the rifle becoming entangled in vines, challenging to maneuver onto targets within dense foliage, and nearly impossible to utilize effectively in bunkers or fortified locations. But although the long barrel offered exceptional long-range accuracy with minimal bullet drop, it became a disadvantage when combat distances seldom surpassed 100 yards and frequently occurred at conversational ranges. The 5-round magazine capacity necessitated that Japanese soldiers reload 60% more often than their American counterparts to achieve the same number of shots fired. Loading through stripper clips involved opening the bolt, correctly positioning the clip, pressing the rounds down into the magazine while removing the clip, and then closing the bolt. A procedure that took 5 to 7 seconds under optimal conditions and significantly longer under combat stress or in awkward firing stances. The 3306 Springfield cartridge utilized by the M1 Garand was already standard across the U.S. military for the M1903 Springfield rifle, M1917 Browning machine gun, M1919 Browning machine gun, and Browning automatic rifle. This uniformity greatly simplified logistics. A single type of ammunition could supply rifles, automatic rifles, and machine guns. The rimless design of the cartridges ensured reliable feeding from clips, belts, and magazines. American ammunition production was remarkable. The Lake City Army ammunition plant alone was capable of producing 200 million rounds annually by 1943. Frankfurt Arsenal, Denver Ordnance Plant, and other facilities contributed hundreds of millions more rounds. Quality control measures guaranteed consistent ballistics. M2 ball ammunition maintained a velocity variation of less than 40 feet per second between lots. In contrast, Japanese forces faced a more complicated ammunition scenario. Units armed with Type 38 rifles required 6.5 hacks 50mm semi-rimmed ammunition, while those equipped with Type 99 rifles needed 7.7x 58mm rounds. The 6.5mm round, while producing less recoil and enabling soldiers to carry a greater quantity of ammunition, was found to be insufficient against fortified positions and lacked adequate stopping power. In contrast, the 7.7mm round rectified these shortcomings but introduced a requirement for dual supply. This 2-caliber system led to ongoing logistical challenges. Documented cases include the 23rd Infantry Regiment on Guadalcanal, receiving 7.7 mm ammunition for their Type 38 rifles, which rendered both the weapons and the ammunition ineffective. Similar mix-ups were reported during the campaign in the Philippines and at isolated island garrisons. The semi-rimmed design of the 6.5 mm cartridge sometimes resulted in feeding issues in tropical environments where the ammunition became corroded. When the U.S. Army's 164th Infantry Regiment, a unit from the North Dakota National Guard, arrived at Guadalcanal on October 13, 1942, they brought with them M1 Garand rifles, which the Marines were eager to obtain. The Marines, who were primarily equipped with M1903 Springfield bolt-action rifles, observed with a blend of envy and skepticism as the Army soldiers unloaded their semi-automatic weapons. During the pivotal battle for Henderson Field from October 24th to 25th, 1942, the advantages of the M1 Garand became unmistakably evident. Staff Sergeant Mitchell Page, although a Marine equipped with a machine gun instead of a rifle, fought alongside the soldiers of the 164th and experienced their firepower firsthand. Private First Class James Cass of Company M, 164th Infantry, later recounted, "The Japs came at us in waves, barely visible in the darkness except for the glint of their bayonets. With our Garands, we could deliver 8 rounds into them before they covered 30 yards. Each man was akin to a machine gun section. We would fire, the rifle would cycle automatically, and we would fire again. There was no need to work a bolt, no disruption of our sight picture. Just squeeze, boom, 8 times before reloading." The 164th Companies were gradually integrated into the line as the Japanese assault progressed, bolstering Marine positions that were starting to falter. The destructive semi-automatic fire from the newly arrived Army troops contributed to stabilizing the line. Colonel Bryant Moore, who led the 164th, reported that his soldiers used over 250,000 rounds of .30 caliber 06 ammunition during the 2-day conflict. Japanese corpses accumulated in front of the positions held by the 164th, many of them felled by the swift and precise fire of M1 Garands. Marine Private Robert Leckie, who would later pen the memoir Helmet for My Pillow, witnessed the Army troops in action. "We believed they were inexperienced, these dog faces with their modern rifles. However, when the Japanese charged, those Garands unleashed a sound we had never encountered before. It resembled a continuous roar, unlike the sporadic crack of our Springfield." Sergeant Masao Watanabe of the 29th Infantry Regiment, 2nd Division Sendai, survived the October offensive at Guadalcanal. In his post-war memoir found in Japanese military archives, he wrote, "We were informed that the Americans were weak, that our Yamato spirit would triumph over their material superiority. Our officers assured us that one Japanese soldier was equivalent to 10 Americans. Yet, when we charged their lines that October night, it felt like running into a wall of lead. Every American soldier appeared to possess an automatic weapon. Our Arisaka rifles, which we operated in the same manner as our fathers had during the Russo-Japanese War, felt outdated. We would fire once, operate the bolt while seeking cover, and then fire again. In that same time frame, the Americans had already discharged 4 or 5 rounds. Watanabe observed that Japanese tactics, which had been effective against Chinese forces, often equipped with older weapons or limited ammunition, proved fatal against American firepower. The banzai charge that had dispersed Chinese conscripts disintegrated before American rifles that seemed to fire incessantly. We could not approach close enough to employ our bayonets. Our alleged superiority in spirit and close combat proved inconsequential when we were shot down just 50 meters from their lines. Lieutenant Hiroshi Takahashi of the 230th Infantry Regiment offered a different viewpoint in a letter discovered on his body. The American automatic rifles are highly destructive. Each soldier can fire as rapidly as our light machine guns. When we advance, it resembles an assault on a position entirely defended by machine guns. Our troops fall before they can operate their rifle bolts for a second shot. At Cape Gloucester in December 1943, Marines of the 1st Marine Division, now fully equipped with M1 Garands, following their earlier experiences on Guadalcanal, landed in torrential rain on New Britain. Private First Class Eugene Sledge, author of With the Old Breed, later recounted the M1's performance in the dreadful conditions. That Garand was the most dependable piece of equipment we possessed. In rain that poured down like waterfalls, in mud that clung to you like quicksand, that rifle continued to fire. The Japanese, with their bolt-action rifles, could not compete with our rate of fire. When they attempted to establish positions in the jungle, we could unleash so much lead into the trees that leaves would fall like rain. Marine Sergeant John Basilone, who would receive the Medal of Honor on Guadalcanal, primarily for his actions with machine guns, also carried an M1 Garand as his personal weapon. He remarked, "The Garand provided every Marine with the firepower equivalent to 3 men armed with bolt-action rifles. In the jungle, where you might only catch a glimpse of the enemy for a second or two, the ability to fire multiple shots without needing to work a bolt made the difference between killing him or him escaping to kill you later." During the Battle of Saipan in June 1944, the largest banzai charge of the Pacific War witnessed over 3,000 Japanese soldiers attacking American lines in a desperate pre-dawn assault. On July 7th, Private First Class Harold Agahome of the 4th Marine Division, equipped with his M1 Garand, played a crucial role in repelling the massive assault. Corporal John Miller recounted, "The Japanese advanced towards us shoulder to shoulder, howling like banshees. Our Garands never ceased firing. We pulled the trigger as quickly as we could. The sound of empty clips ejecting was incessant, resembling a deadly melody. The Japanese, armed with their bolt-action rifles, could not compete with our rate of fire. They might manage 1 shot, perhaps 2 if fortunate, before our semi-automatics took them down." In September 1944, on Peleliu, the 1st Marine Division confronted Japanese forces that had adapted from previous defeats. Rather than launching banzai charges, they defended themselves from fortified positions. However, even in this defensive stance, the bolt-action Arisaka was found lacking. Marine Corporal R.V. Bergen noted, "When we identified a position, we could inundate it with rifle fire. 4 or 5 of us with Garands could deliver 40 rounds into a cave entrance in the time it took them to fire 5 or 6 shots in return. We kept their heads down while other Marines advanced with flamethrowers or explosives. The American training doctrine for the M1 Garand focused on leveraging the rifle's semi-automatic feature while ensuring accuracy. At training facilities throughout the United States, including Fort Benning, Camp Perry, Fort, and many others, soldiers dedicated weeks to mastering their rifles. The standard qualification course required engaging targets from 100 to 500 yards, emphasizing rapid target acquisition and smooth trigger control. The Army's Field Manual 23.5, the basic field manual for the U.S. rifle caliber .30 M1, specified that soldiers should achieve a sustained rate of 40 to 50 aimed shots per minute during combat. Training stressed the importance of maintaining the sight picture and proper sight alignment between shots, as the semi-automatic action did not necessitate breaking position. Soldiers were trained to fire, observe the impact, make adjustments, and re-engage swiftly, fully utilizing the M1's capabilities. The allocation of ammunition for training was generous by any measure. Basic trainees discharged a minimum of 210 rounds during their qualification, with additional ammunition allocated for advanced training. Combat units preparing for deployment frequently fired thousands of rounds per soldier. This extensive live-fire training fostered muscle memory and confidence, which proved to be invaluable in combat situations. Initially, the Marine Corps was skeptical about the M1 Garand due to concerns regarding ammunition waste and the potential degradation of marksmanship standards. However, they eventually developed even more rigorous training programs. Marine doctrine prioritized an accurate volume of fire rather than indiscriminate shooting, advocating for rapid aim shots that took advantage of the M1's semi-automatic action while upholding the Corps' traditional marksmanship excellence. Japanese marksmanship training, deeply rooted in samurai traditions of precision and discipline, emphasized the philosophy of one shot, one kill, known as Ichigekiyatsu. This principle encapsulated both the spiritual beliefs regarding the warrior's focus and the practical limitations imposed by bolt-action rifles. Japanese soldiers underwent comprehensive training at long ranges with the Type 38's remarkable accuracy at distance regarded as a primary virtue. The training manual of the Imperial Japanese Army asserted, "The spirit of the attack must be the primary weapon of the infantry. The rifle and bayonet are merely extensions of the warrior's will." This focus on spiritual elements over material considerations would ultimately prove disastrous against American firepower. Japanese soldiers received extensive training in bayonet combat, engaging in daily practice that mimicked kata-like movements. The Type 38's exceptional length theoretically made it superior to most rifles in bayonet combat. However, combat in the Pacific rarely provided the clear long-range shots for which Japanese soldiers had been trained. The jungle terrain of Guadalcanal, New Guinea, and other battlefields restricted visibility to mere yards. The banzai charges that had previously succeeded against poorly equipped Chinese forces or colonial troops faced devastating failure against semi-automatic rifle fire. The sound produced by concentrated M1 Garand fire emerged as a psychological weapon in its own right. The rapid, rhythmic crack of semi-automatic fire, accentuated by the distinctive metallic ping of ejecting clips, had a demoralizing impact on Japanese forces. A captured Japanese training document from 1943 provided instructions to soldiers. The American automatic rifles generate a sound reminiscent of numerous machine guns firing. Do not allow this volume of fire to dishearten you. Remember your spiritual superiority and advance with resolve. Nevertheless, spiritual superiority was insufficient when faced with material reality. Japanese soldier Yukio Nakamura, captured on Saipan, recounted to interrogators, "We were informed that Americans were cowards who depended on machines rather than warrior spirit. However, their rifles fired continuously. It felt like battling a machine, not human beings. Our officers instructed us to charge with our bayonets, but we were mowed down before we could get close enough to employ them." In contrast, American troops derived significant confidence from their firepower advantage. Marine Corporal James Russell reflected, "Knowing you could send 8 rounds downrange as quickly as you could pull the trigger made you feel invincible. When the Japs charged, you did not panic. You simply began shooting and continued until they ceased advancing, or you heard that ping indicating it was time to reload." At the squad level, the advantage of the M1 Garand became even more evident. An American rifle squad consisting of 12 men equipped with 10 M1 Garands and 2 Browning automatic rifles could deliver between 400 to 500 aimed rounds per minute in sustained fire. In comparison, a Japanese squad armed with Arisaka rifles might achieve 150 to 180 rounds per minute, provided the soldiers were well trained and capable of maximizing bolt action speed. This disparity fundamentally transformed small unit tactics. American squads could effectively execute fire and maneuver with one fire team providing suppressive fire while another advanced. The capacity for precise semi-automatic fire was instrumental in keeping enemy forces suppressed, enabling American troops to advance and neutralize Japanese strongholds. In contrast, Japanese units, constrained by their bolt-action rifles, found it challenging to produce adequate suppressive fire while remaining mobile. At the company level, typically comprising 200 personnel, the disparity became pronounced. An American rifle company was capable of delivering formidable defensive fire against Japanese offensives. This capability was exemplified during the Battle for Henderson Field from October 24th to 25th, where companies of the 164th Infantry Regiment showcased their effectiveness. Company G of the 164th Infantry reported the expenditure of 30,000 rounds of Tholton 3006 ammunition in a single night of combat, averaging 150 rounds per soldier while sustaining only minor casualties. The calculations were undeniable. A Japanese battalion of 800 soldiers launching a banzai charge confronted American companies that could unleash 8,000 accurately aimed rounds per minute. Even when considering the factors of darkness, chaos, and fear, the volume of semi-automatic fire established kill zones that mere human bravery could not surmount. The superiority of the M1 Garand was a direct factor in the success of the American island-hopping strategy. American forces could land on islands occupied by the Japanese, assured of their capability to establish and maintain beachheads against counterattacks. The firepower provided by M1 equipped infantry allowed smaller units to defend larger areas, facilitating the rapid accumulation of forces for breakout operations. This pattern was consistently observed across various islands, including Tarawa, Kwajalein, Anuki, Saipan, Guam, Palele, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa. Japanese forces, unable to compete with American firepower, resorted to increasingly desperate measures. Banzai charges transitioned to a strategy of defense in depth. However, even in fortified positions, the slow firing rate of bolt-action rifles meant that Japanese soldiers seldom had the opportunity to capitalize on moments when Americans exposed themselves during assaults. The retention of bolt-action rifles by the Japanese military was significantly influenced by their victory in the Russo-Japanese War from 1904 to 1905. During this conflict, Japanese infantry, equipped with Type 30 and Type 35 Arisaka rifles, triumphed over Russian forces due to their superior training, discipline, and tactical innovation. The battles of Mukden and the siege of Port Arthur appeared to affirm the superiority of the Japanese warrior spirit over material advantages. However, this success led to an institutional blindness regarding technological advancements. The Japanese military establishment, dominated by officers who revered the Russo-Japanese War as Japan's emergence as a great power, failed to acknowledge that the nature of warfare had fundamentally evolved. World War I had showcased the supremacy of firepower over manpower, yet Japan, having not significantly engaged in that conflict, did not assimilate its lessons. The American adoption of the M1 Garand was a reflection of the hard-earned lessons from World War I. A General John J. Pershing, commander of the American Expeditionary Force, had observed the devastating impact of automatic weapons in France. In 1918, he explicitly advocated for the development of a semi-automatic rifle, asserting, "The soldier who can deliver the most accurate fire in the shortest time will dominate the battlefield of the future. This requirement initiated the development process that ultimately led to the M1 Garand. The United States invested nearly 2 decades in refining the design, conducting extensive trials, and establishing the industrial infrastructure necessary for mass production. By 1936, when the M1 was officially adopted, America had not only created a superior rifle, but also an entire system for its production, maintenance, and supply. Eventually, the Japanese recognized the necessity for semi-automatic rifles. The development of indigenous designs commenced in the 1930s, including the Type Ko rifle designed by Kajiro Nambu and several gas-operated prototypes. Nevertheless, these initiatives were assigned a low priority as resources were allocated to aircraft, naval vessels, and other programs considered more essential. Most notably, when the Japanese eventually attempted to replicate the M1 Garand as the Type 4 rifle, often incorrectly referred to as Type 5, they succeeded in producing merely 250 part sets, with around 100 to 125 rifles actually assembled before the conclusion of the war. The Type 4, which was chambered for 7.7 millimeter Japanese ammunition and utilized a 10-round internal magazine loaded with 2 5-round stripper clips, demonstrated that Japan recognized the M1's benefits but lacked the industrial capability for mass production. The calculations of firepower indicated a significant American advantage. The M1 Garand, when firing M2 ball ammunition, generated 2,656 FTLB of energy at the muzzle. With a trained soldier capable of firing 40 rounds per minute, this equated to 106,140 foot LB of energy delivered each minute. In contrast, a bolt-action Type 99 Arisaka, firing the 7.7 millimeter round with 2,300 FTLB per shot, at a practical rate of 15 rounds per minute, produced only 34,500 FTLB per minute, which is less than 1/3 of the M1's energy output. The trajectory of the 306 Springfield, although exhibiting more drop than the 6.5 millimeter Arisaka at extreme ranges, proved to be superior at typical combat distances in the Pacific. At 300 yards, an unusually long engagement distance for jungle warfare, the 306 dropped 13.5 inches from the line of sight while maintaining 1,900 Naur FTLB of energy, adequate to penetrate multiple layers of jungle foliage and still incapacitate enemy combatants. The 6.5 millimeter Arisaka, while dropping only 11 inches at the same distance, retained merely 100 FTLB of energy, often inadequate for penetrating cover. U.S. Army ordnance tests conducted at the Aberdeen Proving Ground in 1940 quantified the M1's superiority. In controlled trials, soldiers equipped with M1 Garands consistently achieved 24 aimed shots per minute at 200 yards with a 90% hit rate on man-sized targets. Conversely, soldiers using M1993 Springfields, which operate similarly to the Arisaka, managed only 10 aimed shots with an accuracy of 85%. In scenarios involving rapid response to unexpected attacks, soldiers equipped with the M1 could engage 3 distinct targets in the time it took bolt-action users to engage just 1. Additional testing focused on sustained fire over extended durations. After 5 minutes of continuous firing, M1-equipped soldiers maintained 80% of their initial firing rate, whereas bolt-action users' rate dropped to 60% due to fatigue from operating the bolt. The semi-automatic function of the M1 required only movement of the trigger finger, while the bolt-action mechanism necessitated gross motor movements involving the entire arm and shoulder. Combat statistics from battles in the Pacific revealed significant trends At Guadalcanal, Army units armed with M1 Garands fired an average of 150 to 200 rounds per soldier per day during intense combat. In contrast, Marine units still using Springfield rifles fired only 60 to 80 rounds per soldier under similar circumstances. This disparity did not indicate waste of ammunition, but rather highlighted the M1's capability to deliver effective fire against fleeting targets. Japanese forces, on the other hand, typically fired no more than 40 to 50 rounds per soldier per day, constrained by both ammunition supply and the mechanical limitations of bolt-action firing. Captured Japanese after-action reports often mention shortages of ammunition. However, even when ammunition was accessible, the slow rate of bolt-action fire restricted consumption. Japanese military documents obtained throughout the conflict showed a growing recognition of American firepower superiority. A report from Lieutenant General Harukichi Hyakutake, who commanded the 17th Army at Guadalcanal, noted in November 1942, "The enemy's rifle fire exhibits a density and accuracy that surpasses our expectation. Each enemy soldier seems to be equipped with an automatic weapon. Our forces are unable to achieve fire superiority even when we have a numerical advantage. I recommend focusing on night operations and infiltration tactics to counteract the enemy's firepower advantage." By 1944, Japanese tactical doctrine had evolved to recognize American material superiority. The directives for the critical confrontation given to the defenders of the Mariana Islands indicated the enemy's automatic rifles and machine guns form an unassailable barrier of fire during daylight hours. All assaults must be executed at night or under the cover of adverse weather conditions. Movement during the day invites destruction. Lieutenant General Tadamichi Kuribayashi, the astute defender of Iwo, noted in January 1945, "The American automatic rifles are exceptional weapons. Each soldier wields firepower equivalent to 3 or 4 of our riflemen. We must not squander lives in pointless banzai charges against such firepower. Instead, we will ensure they pay for every meter of territory from fortified positions." His defensive approach, which avoided reckless charges in favor of a strategy of defense in depth, extended the duration of the battle, yet could not counteract American material superiority. The Japanese made multiple efforts to enhance infantry firepower. The Type 100 submachine gun, introduced in 1942, aimed to provide automatic fire capability. However, production only reached approximately 27,000 units by the end of the war, which was inadequate to effect a strategic change. Additionally, the weapon utilized the relatively weak 8mm Nambu pistol cartridge, which lacked the necessary range and stopping power for combat in the Pacific. More telling was the Japanese attempt to replicate the M1 Garand itself. When American forces seized the Yokosuka naval arsenal in 1945, they uncovered the Type 4 rifle program. Engineers at Yokosuka had reverse-engineered captured M1 Garands, altering the design to accommodate Japanese 7.7mm ammunition and to feed from a 10-round internal magazine loaded with standard 5-round stripper clips. The Japanese had even enhanced certain features by incorporating a rubber recoil pad and adding a last-round bolt-hold-open mechanism. Nevertheless, Japanese industry proved unable to mass-produce this intricate design. While they had manufactured components for approximately 250 rifles, only 100 to 125 had been assembled into complete firearms. The Type 4 program demonstrated that Japanese military engineers had a comprehensive understanding of the M1's benefits. However, they were hindered by a lack of industrial infrastructure to manufacture it in significant quantities. In addition to these industrial constraints, the Japanese military culture was resistant to prioritizing material considerations over spiritual values. Colonel Masanobu Tsuji, a staff officer who served in various theaters, remarked after the war, "We were aware that the Americans possessed superior weaponry, but to admit this publicly would have undermined troop morale. We needed to uphold the belief in spiritual superiority, even as our soldiers were decimated by American automatic weapons." This cultural resistance also influenced training practices. As late as 1944, Japanese infantry training focused more on bayonet drills and night infiltration than on marksmanship. The official infantry manual allocated 3 pages to rifle marksmanship while devoting 12 pages to spiritual preparation and bayonet combat. This disparity reflected entrenched beliefs regarding the essence of warfare that technical realities could not easily change. The Battle of Okinawa, which took place from April to June 1945, served as the ultimate test of American firepower against Japanese resolve. On Japan's doorstep, 180,000 American troops confronted 120,000 Japanese defenders in what would become the most brutal battle in the Pacific. The Japanese forces, led by Lieutenant General Mitsuru Ushima, had learned from earlier defeats. Rather than engaging in futile banzai charges, they established intricate defensive positions within Okinawa's rugged landscape. Nevertheless, even in a defensive stance, the limitations of bolt-action rifles were significant. As American forces advanced, Japanese defenders equipped with Arisaka rifles struggled to provide the necessary volume of fire to halt their progress. Private and First Class Desmond Doss, the conscientious objector medic, who would later be awarded the Medal of Honor, recounted the sound of American rifles aiding his rescue efforts. The Garands were firing so rapidly that it resembled a continuous roar. Our soldiers were able to keep Japanese forces at bay while I attended to the wounded. Had they all possessed bolt-action rifles similar to those of the Japanese, I would not have been able to rescue those men. On May 4th, 1945, the Japanese initiated their sole significant counteroffensive during the battle. A contingent of 5,000 Japanese troops launched an assault on American positions in a coordinated effort aimed at penetrating the American rear. The offensive commenced at 0430 hours, featuring the most extensive artillery bombardment that Japanese forces had executed in the Pacific War, totaling 12,000 rounds within a span of 30 minutes. As Japanese infantry advanced from their positions and charged across the open terrain, they encountered a formidable wall of American gunfire. Private First Class Martin Brennan of the 17th Infantry Regiment recounted, "They approached us in waves, but these were not the chaotic banzai charges we had previously witnessed. These were systematic assaults supported by fire, yet our Garands continued to fire relentlessly. 8 shots, ping, reload, 8 additional shots. The cacophony was astounding. The Japanese, armed with their bolt-action rifles, would fire once or perhaps twice. Subsequently, our semi-automatic fire would decimate them. The assault disintegrated against American firepower, resulting in catastrophic Japanese casualties, 4,000 dead compared to 700 in fine American losses. The rapid discharge of thousands of M1 Garands bolstered by automatic weapons and artillery created lethal zones where Japanese bravery could not surmount the material disadvantage. Even when Japanese soldiers breached American lines, the close-range firepower superiority of semi-automatic rifles proved to be a decisive factor. Sergeant William Manchester, who would later gain fame as a historian, fought on Okinawa with the 29th Marines. He noted, "The M1 rifle was our greatest ally. In the tumult of close-quarters combat, the ability to fire 8 rounds without needing to operate a bolt preserved countless American lives. I observed Japanese soldiers struggling to manipulate their bolt actions while under fire, their hands trembling and fumbling with the mechanism, while our troops simply continued to pull the triggers. In preparation for Operation Downfall, the planned invasion of Japan that was set to commence with Operation Olympic in November 1945, it was anticipated that the M1 Garand would be of significant importance. Military strategists analyzing casualty statistics from the Battle of Okinawa determined that American forces would require overwhelming firepower superiority to successfully confront the anticipated Japanese resistance on the home islands. The production strategy included the manufacturing of 500,000 replacement M1 rifles for the operation, with Springfield Armory and Winchester ramping up their output to a total of 2,000 rifles per day by August 1945. Additionally, International Harvester was slated to initiate production at a third facility. The demand for ammunition was immense, with planners estimating a need for 100 million rounds monthly solely for rifle usage. This figure underscores the expected volume of fire from troops equipped with the M1. Intelligence assessments indicated that Japanese homeland defense would consist of 2.5 million Arisaka rifles in military possession, along with millions more allocated to civilian militia groups. Nevertheless, a significant portion of these were training rifles, outdated models, or last resort single-shot weapons. The Type 99 substitute standard rifles being manufactured in 1945 were so poorly constructed that American intelligence raised concerns regarding their safety for the user. American strategists calculated that each beach targeted for invasion would necessitate the suppression of Japanese positions through naval gunfire and aerial bombardment, followed by assault troops whose M1 Garands would deliver the necessary fire volume to overpower the defenders. Analyses of battles in the Pacific revealed that American forces armed with semi-automatic rifles experienced 40% fewer casualties than what was anticipated for troops equipped with bolt-action rifles in comparable scenarios. Acknowledging their disadvantage in firepower, the Japanese planned to employ suicide tactics, utilizing civilians as human shields and engaging in close-quarters combat in urban settings where the advantages of rifles would be diminished. The secret plans of Japan uncovered after the war disclosed extreme measures such as providing bamboo spears to civilians, deploying suicide swimmers equipped with explosive charges, and even initiatives aimed at disseminating biological weapons. The Arisaka rifle, which was once a symbol of pride for the Imperial Army, had been reduced to merely one element of a desperate defense strategy. The atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki brought the war to a close prior to the initiation of Operation Downfall. Subsequent analyses indicated that American casualties might have soared to between 500,000 and 1 million, with Japanese losses potentially reaching into the millions. The firepower advantage of the M1 Garand would have been pivotal, albeit at a significant cost in human lives on both sides. The success of the M1 Garand had a profound impact on the development of military rifles globally. The Soviet Union, which faced challenges with the limited production of its SVT-40 semi-automatic rifle during World War II, created the SKS carbine, which was directly influenced by the captured M1 Garands. The Type 56 carbine from China was essentially a replica of the Soviet SKS. France's MAS-49 was developed by incorporating lessons learned from both the M1 Garand and their own pre-war semi-automatic experiments. Even Britain, which had been traditionally conservative regarding the adoption of small arms and had been content with their Lee Enfield rifles during the war, began to develop semi-automatic rifles immediately after the war. The Belgian FN-49, the Swiss Is-257, and the Italian BM-59 all mirrored the lessons derived from America's semi-automatic achievements during World War II. The M1 Garand continued to be utilized throughout the Korean War, where it once again demonstrated its superiority over the bolt-action rifles employed by Chinese and North Korean forces. In the initial phases of that conflict, American troops in Korea, armed with M1 Garands and supported by automatic weapons, consistently thwarted large-scale Chinese human wave assaults that were reminiscent of Japanese banzai charges. The rifle remained in service until it was gradually supplanted by the M14 in the late 1950s and early 1960s. In a striking historical irony, the United States provided the newly established Japanese self-defense forces with M1 Garand rifles. During the 1950s, Japanese soldiers who had encountered the weapon subsequently trained with it, gaining first-hand experience of the firepower advantage that their predecessors had faced. The Japan Self-Defense Forces, JSDF, received around 150,000 odd M1 Garands through American military assistance initiatives. Japanese veterans interviewed during the 1960s consistently pointed to American firepower, especially the M1 Garand, as a crucial factor in their defeat. Saburo Sakai, Japan's foremost surviving fighter ace, remarked, "We could match American bravery. We could match American strategies, but we could never match American firepower. Every GI with his automatic rifle was equivalent to 3 of our soldiers." Today, both the M1 Garand and Arisaka rifles are highly coveted by collectors, albeit for different reasons. The civilian marksmanship program has sold over 500,000 surplus M1 Garands to American citizens since its establishment, making it one of the most prevalent military collectibles. The rifle's distinctive ping has become iconic in popular culture, appearing in numerous war films, television series, and video games. The M1's reputation as the greatest battle implement ever created is upheld, with General Patton's famous evaluation remaining unchallenged among World War II infantry weapons. Contemporary shooting competitions still include M1 Garand matches, with the rifle demonstrating remarkable accuracy even by modern standards. Japanese Arisaka rifles, particularly those retaining intact imperial chrysanthemum markings, are highly valued collectibles. The chrysanthemum, a symbol of the emperor, was usually ground off rifles prior to surrender, rendering intact examples rare and precious. Modern evaluations have confirmed that the Arisaka action is exceptionally robust, even stronger than the Mauser or Springfield actions are. However, this strength could not compensate for the inherent disadvantage of bolt-action operation. Interestingly, both rifles have been utilized in combat during the 21st century, with M1 Garands appearing in conflicts in the Middle East, supplied decades earlier through military aid programs. Arisaka rifles have been recorded as being utilized by insurgent groups in Afghanistan and Myanmar, highlighting the resilience of their design despite being tactically outdated. On that October evening at Henderson Field in 1942, Private Robert Young Deere of the 164th Infantry Regiment, along with thousands of other American soldiers, showcased the devastating efficiency of semi-automatic rifle fire. They were illustrating a fundamental principle of modern warfare. Technological superiority, supported by industrial production, could influence the outcome of battles irrespective of human bravery or resolve. The M1 Garand was capable of delivering 40 to 50 aimed shots per minute. In contrast to the Arisaka's 15 to 20, it could fire 8 rounds before needing to reload compared to the Arisaka's 5. The semi-automatic operation allowed for a rate of fire that could halt a banzai charge, while the Arisaka required breaking sight picture to chamber the next round. These numerical realities, compounded across millions of individual firefights from Guadalcanal to Okinawa, played a significant role in determining the outcome of the Pacific War. Lieutenant Kenji Yamamoto, who led the charge on October 24th, 1942, with his Type 38 Arisaka, did not live to witness the dawn. His rifle, known for its remarkable accuracy and commendable construction, featuring a smooth bolt action and robust receiver, could not withstand the barrage of semi-automatic fire that confronted his assault. After the battle, his weapon was found with 3 rounds still in the magazine. He had only managed to fire twice, while advancing 100 yards under the concentrated fire of M1 Garands. Surrounding him were dozens of his soldiers, most with full or nearly full magazines in their Arisakas, having been felled before they could effectively return fire. The narrative of the M1 Garand versus the Arisaka rifles ultimately conveys a broader truth about World War II in the Pacific, that courage and determination, while commendable and essential, could not surpass the arithmetic of firepower. By the conclusion of the war, the United States had manufactured 5.4 million M1 Garands, ensuring that nearly every American rifleman had access to semi-automatic firepower. In contrast, Japan, which produced over 6.5 million rifles in total, remained constrained by the limitations of bolt-action technology and could not achieve the same volume of aimed fire as the semi-automatic rifles. General George S. Patton's declaration that the M1 Garand was the greatest battle implement ever created was not an exaggeration, but a mathematical reality. From the humid jungles of Guadalcanal, where the rifle first demonstrated its value in the hands of the American Army, to the volcanic ash of Iwo Jima, where Marines utilized it to overcome Japanese strongholds. From the rain-soaked horrors of Cape Gloucester to the intense urban combat expected in Japan itself, the M1 Garand proved to be more than just a rifle. It was a weapon that contributed to victory in the war, providing American forces with a significant advantage in the most brutal theater of the world's most devastating conflict. The distinctive sound of an ejecting en-bloc clip became synonymous with American triumph in the Pacific, a sound that signified that 8 enemy soldiers would never reach American lines, that another Japanese position had been neutralized, another island secured, and another step taken toward Tokyo Bay. In comparison, the bolt-action Arisaka, despite its strengths in durability and precision, was merely fighting the previous war with outdated technology. Ultimately, the Pacific War was not won by any single weapon or battle, but rather by the collective impact of American industrial power and technological superiority. The M1 Garand emerged as perhaps the most prominent symbol of this advantage at the individual soldier level. Every GI or Marine armed with an M1 wielded the firepower equivalent to that of 3 enemy soldiers, a benefit that no amount of spiritual training or warrior tradition could surpass. The Japanese soldier, as brave, dedicated, and skilled as he was, could only operate his rifle bolt so quickly. In contemporary warfare, the combination of fire rate and accuracy determined survival. The Arisaka rifles are now housed in museums and private collections, esteemed for their craftsmanship and historical importance. Similarly, the M1 Garand has also become a part of history, although many remain operational on shooting ranges throughout America. However, during their era, amidst the intense conflict in the Pacific, one rifle was distinctly superior to the other. The semi-automatic rifle transformed every American soldier into an independent source of firepower, and this advantage, when applied across the extensive Pacific theater, significantly contributed to the Allied victory. The decisive factor was not merely bravery or determination, but rather the mechanical accuracy of gas-operated semi-automatic fire. 8 rounds could be fired with a single pull of the trigger until that characteristic ping signaled the need to reload and persist in the battle.